Hey there, I'm Adrienne. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to be doing a webinar about roofs and how to do all sorts of editing with the automatic tools, and then doing some manual editing, doing some slopes and that sort of thing. So I have about 30 minutes worth of a presentation here that we'll go through. And if you have questions during that, you can type them in through GoToWebinar, and I have staff on hand that will help answer those for you. We'll also take live questions when we're done. So let's get started and see if we can learn a thing or two about roofs. For today's webinar, we're going to talk about story-and-a-half houses, manual dormers, and how to get the multiple pitches on your roofs. But I wanted to start by deconstructing this plan that I have on screen. So this is a house that's one of 25 variations of the same floor layout. And the task was kind of an exercise in stylization where we wanted to take the same floor plan and show it stylized in multiple different ways. Chief actually makes it really pretty easy to do this. All you have to do is come up with a floor plan that you love and then save copies and play with the exterior and your roof pitches. You can see the project plans on our samples gallery on our website. And if you find the Paradise Rises 25 Stylized Homes, you can download the PDF that shows the different phases that we came up with. I'll post this plan to Chief Talk so you can download this project file that I'm working from. And then I'm hoping to update all of the plans to our samples page as well. So those are downloadable and editable projects for you. Let's get started. It's really useful to be able to understand how the house is kind of assembled so that you can disassemble and remake it again in a different style. And so the way that I'll start is by activating my floor plan view. So that's this view. For any project like this that you're going to kind of do surgery on it, make sure that you do a save as or export your entire project to a second location so that you have a backup of the original so you don't mess it up. I would encourage anybody that is trying to get their head around roofs to go through this process a few times and have fun, because that's the best way to learn. I'm going to go up to my second floor. We just have a living space. This is actually like an apartment. We're going to delete that. So from the floor menu, just choose delete current floor, and you'll see that the model obviously reflects that change, and I have a blank screen here. You can also see that it's converted my second floor to the attic, so that's now the topmost level that Chief Architect sees in this particular design, and so I'm going to come back down to my first floor. So now let's turn on our automatic roofs. So I'll just click on my roof tool, and I'm going to choose Auto Rebuild Roofs. So when I click this button, let's kind of look at what happens. You can see the whole thing goes nuts. So the roof is currently building over the foundation plan. And that's because I'm using this setting that we've talked about in previous webinars for ignore top first floor. So this is telling the program to ignore the uppermost level that I have in my design and build the roof only based on the floor that's below this one. So it's building it over the foundation. So when I hit OK, you'll see that the program has updated, and now it's using the information that I originally put into the walls on the first floor to generate this gull wing roof. So if we want to take it all the way back to the beginning, then what we'll do is come to the edit menu and choose reset to defaults. And then I am going to, for all the floors in my plan, reset the floor heights, the ceiling heights, and these two roof options. So this means I'm telling the project that whatever input I, as a user, have given the program, I want to throw that away and go back to the out-of-box settings. So I recommend doing this for scenarios where something has happened in your plan and you don't know why the program keeps building crazy things. It's pretty easy to have accidentally checked a box inside a wall dialog or inside a room that you didn't remember or you didn't know that you modified. If you reset all of those defaults and turn the automatics back on, the program's going to kind of reset the structure back to its initial cases. So that's a great troubleshooting tool. Just know that it will undo anything that you've intentionally done, like if you have a sunken floor or a high vaulted ceiling or something like that, you might lose some of those values. But you can see when I reset, the program just defaults to a hip roof, so this is a perfectly acceptable little cottage house that we have right now. And kind of just to speak to the concept that I was talking about, it's really easy to change the style on the fly. So if I just change this front porch wall to a gable wall, you'll see the program updates. So in essence, that's what we'll be doing during this project, is to just kind of tell the program that we're going back to that gull wing style roof. In order to get there, I need to make a large gable over the side of the house here. What I'll do is I'll choose my side walls, and I'm using my shift key and just selecting any of the walls that I no longer want a roof to bear over. So this is kind of the most important concept, in my opinion, is understanding the difference between walls that are bearing a roof and walls that are non-bearing or gable. And to illustrate that, one thing I like to do is make sure that my roof baselines are turned on. So I'm going to come into my layers and I'm going to turn on roofs baselines. So when that layer is turned on, not only will I see my roof plane, so I already have that layer turned on, but I see this extra little dashed line that's got this tick mark in the middle. That's our roof baseline, and that's telling us where this particular roof is, the base is, or the bearing point is, and it's currently bearing over this porch beam. The same is true for this back wall, and I have a tiny little gable right here, and you can see that it's got a bearing line. So it's convenient to think about that bearing line, and the little tick mark is showing you the direction the pitch is going up. Okay, so that's important to remember. There's no bearing line on this side of the wall because there's no extra roof plane, so we don't have a roof plane that's going sloping up. So any gable wall, any wall you mark as a gable, won't have a roof bearing there. So to kind of further illustrate this, what I'll do is choose this tiny little railing I have in the back. I want to make it continue the slope up here. So I'll open up my specification for this wall. And this applies to any wall type that is part of a room definition. And on the roof panel, I want this to be a high shed gable wall. So it's going to be the high point of a shed roof is essentially what this description is telling you, and it's not going to have any bearing properties. The program just extends that up. So that's an easy way to just get started on our base of our house. Now, the next thing that I know I want to do is to have a change in pitch here. So we're going to bear our roof off the front of the porch, and we want a low pitch, and then we want it to change to a steep pitch. So when we're looking at where we want that transition to change, we have two options. We can set a distance from the baseline into the house, or if we were to take a section view, we could set the distance from 0, or the subfloor level, up into the air. So we could pick a specific elevation where we'd want that break to occur. I find it easiest to just specify a distance, so let's go ahead and try that. So I'll grab the two walls, and then on the roof panel we have the pitch options here. Right now these roofs are set as a 6 and 12 inch slope, but I think that's going to be too steep, so I'm going to set this to 5. And then I'm going to check this box for upper pitch, and we'll set the upper pitch to be a 10 and 12. So here are those values I was just mentioning. The starts at height is an elevation point where you can set where in the air you want that break to occur, or in from baseline. So I'll just type a number in here, and when I hit tab or click on one of these other cells, it will automatically calculate the opposite number. If I hit OK, let's see what happens. So now we've got our break in our roof, and you can see where that occurs here. And you'll notice there's another roof baseline. So the program has generated 2 new roof planes based on the input that I gave in the wall specification dialog. So let's look at doing our half story and adding another floor. So now I'll come back to my floor tool, and I'm just going to choose Build New Floor, and we'll derive it from the existing floor, and I'll just receive the defaults here. When the roof rebuilds, you can see that it's also reacting to the walls that are created on the second floor. So this roof is automatically bumping against the second floor. If I turn on my reference display, this is kind of our floor footprint. And now I can start sketching the footprint for my usable space upstairs. So I just use my interior wall tools. I'm going to drop a couple walls in. And we'll just put these about 8 feet off of the outside walls. Let's turn on the glass house view so that you can kind of see how this is being constructed. So here are my interior walls, and nothing is going on in regards to the roof because the program is still looking at these exterior walls as the primary consideration for the roof calculations. So in a story and a half, these might be more like attic spaces. So I'm just going to name these rooms attics, and that's got some predetermined intelligence that allows the program to ignore the wall heights and the ceiling heights in a room that's designated as an attic, which gives us kind of this clear story type of a look. We need the program to stop looking at this upper wall, and we want that to behave as a knee wall. So that means that the roof will ignore the room's height when they're associated with the knee wall. So if I just choose these two walls and open up their specification, we have this knee wall attribute. So go ahead and choose that and then hit OK. And now we're back to our goal wing, and we have a space, a usable space upstairs. So this is our story and a half case. So now is a good time to make some clever choices about the construction. This is where we could do things like select the interior wall and snap it to the roof so that your wall is automatically bearing underneath that joint and your framers are going to like you better. Or we could also play with some of those values that we initially set in the wall dialog and make the roof bear over the wall if you know that this is where you want your interior wall to be at the end of the day and you're recreating the roof. One easy way to do that is while your reference display is turned on from the dimension tools, grab the tape measure tool and then just snap to the baseline that we see in red here, and then click and drag to your wall, and we can see that that distance is 13 feet and 7/16 of an inch. So if I go downstairs, then I can once again start tweaking these values. So if I can remember that value for long enough, we'll put 13 feet and 7/16 of an inch. So it adjusts the roof plane by creating the joint over that wall. Similarly, if you wanted to make sure that you had full headroom upstairs, then you could do the same type of thing. Move your interior wall to this dotted line. This dotted line represents where the interior drywall break is, so where that ceiling surface is starting to slope right here. That's your ceiling break line. So you can take your interior wall and snap it to that, or you could use that elevation height and set your roof break to be at that height. Okay, so now I think we can start looking at adding dormers. We do have an automatic dormer tool, but I'm not actually going to show that in this demonstration. I'll be creating dormers manually. I guess I'm old school. I've been doing it this way for a long time now. But really what we want to do is look at our floor plan layout and start breaking it into the livable spaces. So I'll start just by taking my exterior wall, and I'm just going to click and drag to break my attic spaces into 3 rooms. What we'll end up doing here is putting a gable dormer using wall definitions and room definitions to make that pop through the roof. I need to make sure that these walls are placed accurately, and I'll just do that by using my temporary dimension tools. If you don't see these show up on your screen, the temporary toggle is over here. And then you can select on your walls and click on the dimension to type in a value. So we'll make those 8 feet off of the exterior. When I move walls like this, I make sure to do just a visual double check to see where that arrow is snapping. It does matter if it's snapping on the inside or the outside edge of the wall in order to have matching distances on each side. And now, because these are attic rooms, I don't want the program to use that smart feature anymore. I want the program to think this has a full height ceiling. So I'm just going to change it back to unspecified for now. Once I get closer with a wall layout, I would probably go back through and change it to a bedroom or bathroom or whatever type of a space it's going to ultimately be used for. But for now, just setting it to not attic is sufficient. And you can see the program already will pop that roof up high and bring the walls through the roof. So inside this room definition, we have told the program that we want the ceiling to be regular plate height. And because all of these walls are considered a roof-bearing wall, so we have a baseline, you can see it on each side, it's put a hip roof. I can just grab this front wall and mark it as a gable wall. And because these two rooms are still attic rooms, the program is ignoring the walls that are containing that room, and that's why it's building over the top of it. So let's make some more edits to this dormer using the automatic roof tools. It looks like I need to have a steeper roof pitch and a shorter overhang. And then I have this bump out. We'll see if we can get that to generate automatically as well. So for that front dormer, I'm going to grab these two sides that are controlling the roof. And on the roof specification dialog, we have the pitch options here. So right now the pitch is a 6 and 12 pitch, and I have this little wrench with a checkbox next to it. And that's telling me that these walls are referencing my project's default attributes. So for this dormer, I don't want 6 and 12, I want 10 and 12. So I'll go ahead and type that in, and you can see the check mark goes away. So that's just telling us that it's no longer using the plan's defaults. If I wanted to revert this back to the default, I can just check this wrench and it will set that value back. So we're straying from the default with 10 and 12. And then the length of our overhang is another thing we can control here. I want that to be shallower so that my dormer isn't too overbearing on my project. And then I'm going to hit OK, and you see that will update too. We have a hole here as well. I'm not trying to ignore that, but we'll come to that once I get closer to my automatic roofs. The overhang on the front of my dormer here is longer now than the side edges, and that might be a good thing for shading if this is a sunny spot, but in this case I think I want this also to be a little bit less. It's really the same story. You just open up the wall specification that roof is associated with. And even though there's not a roof that's bearing with a baseline over this wall, this is still considered a full gable wall. So the program is associating some roof attributes to this wall, and it does have an overhang value. So I can change this, and I'll change it also to 10 inches. While my automatic rebuild is turned on, then I get that shorter overhang. Now let's look at our bump out and try to make that. Let's turn my reference display on, and you can see where my stairs are. I really just want to break this wall. I'll select the wall, and I'm going to break it. Because my roofs are looking at that room definition, things might go crazy. So let's just play this out. I'm dragging my wall and snapping it to the outside. And then I'm just closing off this space. And once I have a room definition, the program will try to rebuild the roof. So this is kind of interesting what's happening here. Because this wall is considered a full gable wall, and I broke the wall and slid it out, the program retained that full gable property, which is convenient. But when I use this handle at the end, the diamond at the end, to drag a new wall off of the end, this wall is also a derivative of my gable wall. So that means it also has the full gable attribute. And I don't want a gable here. I want a hip. So I want a roof to bear over that wall, and I want this on both sides. Okay, in this little microcosm of the bump out, we got a gable roof, but it doesn't really look like my original project, and in doing it, we got this mess happening here. So this is a good example of the limitations of using the automatic tools. You'll notice that there will be instances where you feel like you're really very close to having the roof that you want, and then you'll make one tweak, kind of like what we've just done, and the roof kind of explodes. So that's where you've hit that threshold in some cases of just pushing the boundaries of what the automatic roof can do. So the solution to that is to turn off your automatics and begin using the manual roof editing tools. When it comes to this, what I like to do is to undo. Okay, so now our roof is building properly. I do want this roof to go lower. So the other thing I know is that if I were to lower the plate height of this room, so I'm going to just subtract 12 inches to move that dormer roof down, I'd get a similar scenario. So Chief gets a little confused and doesn't know how to handle this. So again, this is a scenario where I'm just going to undo, and now I'm going to start thinking about my roof in manual terms because we've kind of hit that barrier. So let's go ahead and start with this dormer, and I'll select these roof planes and open up the specification, and I do want to slide the entire roof down a foot. I know I like this pitch, I want to keep it pretty steep, so I'm going to lock that value. Chief won't change this now. Then I'm going to come up into one of these other height values, and I want to subtract 12 inches, and that's going to bring my plate height down to 7 feet. And also, we get this warning where the program is telling us that if you're going to manually edit things, then we can't automatically build them anymore. If you turn automatic tools back on again, you're going to lose your manual edits. So I'll hit yes here. Okay, so now we're on our manual editing journey, and there's a couple issues that you can see in the 3D view. So this is another reason that I like to have my views side by side like this, and why I like to have the glass house view turned on. So it's really easy to see where there's kind of a flaw in the build process. Because I slid this roof down and I don't have automatic tools on anymore, this roof is non-reactive. It's really easy to change this. I can select any of the edges of my roof. The red diamond handle means this is the active edge. I want to join this edge with this roof. So the best way to do that is while it's the active edge, choose my Join Roof Planes tool, and then you can hover over the roof plane you want to modify and just left click once, and the program will join those up for you. You can see that change is reflected in our plan view. You can do this in plan view also, but I don't have access to that lower roof plane, right? So I have these roof planes on my second floor plan, but on my first floor plan, there are all these other roof planes for the rest of the project. So it's useful to be able to edit these together, and we have a tool for that. If I select the roofs that are on my main floor plan, so these are the ones that are bearing off of the first floor walls, in the edit menu I have these two buttons for display on floor above or display on floor below. And this isn't actually going to edit the construction or modify the construction of these roofs. It's simply going to draw those lines on the next floor. So I'll click to move those up a level. And now when I come to my second floor plan, you can see that every roof plane in my design is showing together, so I can really see how they're interacting. So now from plan view, I can select the edge of this valley, click my Join Roof tool, and then select the opposing edge, and the program's going to sew that up for me. So now my dormer is joined properly. So next, let's get back to our bump out and get that drawn. So again, I'm going to select my wall here, and then I'm going to add that break that I had lost. And then again, I'll turn my reference display on so that when I select this wall and drag it, I can snap it to those stairs. And once again, I'll make these modifications to the walls to add my side walls. And now you can see that when I've connected this room together, the program isn't doing anything with the roofs because I've turned off my automatic roof tools. I'm just going to start editing these roof planes and dragging them together so that I get the overhang over my stairwell, and then I'll end up with the overhang over my bump out. Roofs are like any other polyline, so these are something that you can select edges, you can add breaks, and you can really just modify it, and you'll have that editing tools that you have with any other polyline tool. I'm just making these modifications so that each of the floors are covered properly. For this plane, I want to have a standard overhang depth, so I'm just going to put a break, and that's going to allow me to grab this edge and snap it over to my overhang so that I have a 90-degree corner in this roof plane. The program's going to automatically take any walls that it sees, and it's going to try to connect those up to the bottom of the roof plane, and that's when you'll see an attic wall. I can use temporary dimensions to accurately set my overhang depth, so if I want this to be an 18-inch overhang. So we're getting close to wrapping up, but I did want these dormers to be symmetrical on the front and on the back, and they're not currently. A really easy way to manage this situation is to simply delete this roof now that my automatic roofs are turned off, and then select my front dormer roof, and I can choose copy, and I can choose reflect, and I'm just going to reflect it about the main ridge. And that will drop this roof on the back side, and once again I'll need to use my join roof planes to clean up those joints. So now that your roof planes are in place, they're not going to change unless you have selected them and deleted them or edited them, or unless you turn your automatic roofs back on. So now you're free to come through this interior space, these floor spaces, and fill them in with, more interior walls, and adjust the ceiling heights and do all of those things that you'll need to do for your interior design. When you have gaps like this, it's really just because there's a gap between where the exterior wall and the roof exist. So we literally don't have a wall here to close the gap. The most obvious solution for that would be to drag your wall up, and that will fill the space. Let's change to standard view here. There are other issues with this. Maybe you don't want the wall to go to the floor inside your design. So that's a scenario where you would open up this wall specification, and I can tell the program to cut the wall at the bottom when there's a roof adjacent. So when you look at this from the interior, you can see that it creates a slope at the bottom of the wall. If I click on this, you can see that maybe I didn't draw my wall long enough, so I would just extend the wall longer to fill in that space. Let's undo that setting so this wall will come down all the way into the room. If I want to keep this wall, then we have the other problem of showing siding, and I need that siding above the roof so that it's weatherproof. So that solution is to open up this specific wall, and then down here on the bottom we have this checkbox, lower wall type if split by budding roof. So I'll check that box, and I want it to just be an interior wall. So now you can see that the program has split this wall into two pieces. And then the last thing that I just kind of want to poke at, because I can, drawing an actual manual roof for a scenario like a shed situation. So let's say instead of a gable dormer here, I want a shed dormer. And maybe this happens after I've done my other edits, so I need to do the work manually. What I'll do is delete my roof plane, and then I'll grab my roof tool from the build roof drop down. And I need this wall to bear my roof. So this is going to be our baseline for the roof. I'll just click and drag across the distance, and then when I let go of my mouse, you can see I get this kind of rubber banding effect. You want to drag up the slope. So remember that little tick mark for our baseline? We're dragging up the slope to create a manual shed roof. So when I click again to let go, Chief will often give you this option, and I almost always just close the dialog out, and I don't mess with it because I want to interact with the preview manually so that I can understand what's going on. I'm a visual person. So here I would decide what I want my base height to be. Right now it's using the wall top to determine where that baseline is, but I also want the pitch to be shallower for this shed roof so that it comes into the main roof a little bit lower. In order to do that, I'm going to keep the top of plate locked, and I'm going to change my pitch. We'll go with maybe 3 and 12, and then I'll hit tab or select a different cell, and you can see again those numbers update. Now I want to lock this value because I've edited the pitch, and I want the pitch to stay the same, but I actually want to lower the whole roof plane by 12 inches. So I'm going to subtract 12. And you can see that it's dropped my roof, and now I just need to close up the hole. So let's try our join roof tool. And it kind of worked, but look at this triangle. So because I had 2 edges coming up, you can only join one roof edge to another roof edge. You can't join one roof edge to multiple roof edges. So I just need to manually modify this, like so. And then you just do final editing, like dragging the overhang out for the sides, and then you would manually modify the overhang for the front. Again, I could use my temporary dimensions, but here we have a shed dormer over the front of our house. Okay, so I think we can start taking some questions. If you have any questions you'd like to ask, I'll do my best to answer them. You have an icon in the list that allows you to raise your hand, and then Carrie will call on you and we'll see what we can do.
Adrian, our first question comes from Robin. Hey Robin, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hey Robin.
So my first question is coming to you from I understand pretty much everything that you're doing because I do a lot of that when I'm normally doing roof planes. However, I am constantly faced with this one conundrum that just kills me and I cannot solve. And when I have to set manual roof planes, for example, I have 2 different roof pitches and I have an addition going on a house. So I need to draw that gable onto the roof line. So there's an addition and I have to draw that gable onto the roof line. So I place my sections for the roof, but then, and they're within 2 feet of each other, but I keep getting this stupid warning that says cannot move these roof edges without making adjacent edges cross one another or making one of them 0 length. Before joining them, try adding a break to one of the edges or using edit handles to move the edges closer together. And it's driving me crazy because I've tried it every which way but Tuesday. Okay. So I've had them 6 feet apart. I've had them 6 inches apart. I know my pitches are in the correct location. I know everything's correct, but this error constantly pops up for me.
Okay, so I know the error that you're talking about. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of an exact example to create.
This is actually on an addition. I have manual roof plans for that addition.
Okay.
To gable into it because I have a different pitch for this. So the roof plane is actually, in this circumstance, it's a little bit higher. But regardless, I should be able to do a manual roof plane and not have to get this error.
Yeah, so I think what's might be happening is it sounds like you're trying to join the roofs, and then that's the moment when you kind of get this error message that pops up that says it can't join to the edges. So one thing that you might try to do is when you select, for example, let's say the, I don't know if I have a great case off the top of my head, but what I like to do is try to break my roof planes that I'm going to join together and just kind of mock up the edge shape, and then I'll join after that. So if you don't have enough brake handles in the roof's edge, Oh gosh, I wish I
I'm
wish I
literally
had your example to show. But anyway, you need to have, often what I'll do is like, let's look at this example here.
I'm actually only trying to join two rectangular planes. I could drag them up onto the roof after I get my pitch, but I'm literally only trying to join two rectangular planes.
So you're saying that you would draw, let me do a new plan here real quick.
Draw a square and then draw just like an addition off of it. Like, you know, that's what I'm trying to do. But the conditions of the, so the reason I'm manually drawing this is because I have existing and as-built and existing conditions. So I have existing roof planes and existing lines. So I can't draw this. It has to be drawn manually on the addition.
Okay. Okay, so you can't so you have to draw them manually because you already have the roof planes. Okay, so we have a simple little shed here, and I'll add a bump out, kind of maybe like what you're describing back here. And we'll, well, let me undo that. And I'm going to turn off my automatic roof so the program doesn't try to do anything to the existing roof for me. And I will, like you say, draw a gable roof, oops, over the bump out.
So say your 7-foot section is a gable, correct? And you have to bring that gable into your existing roof.
Okay, so you want to, so we'll draw our roof plane over the bump out. So I'm just kind of loosey-goosey here, drawing a couple roof planes. And
Exactly.
I'll join these together so I get the start of my gables here. And why don't I do a camera view so you guys can kind of see this? Sometimes hard to imagine.
Is exactly what I'm doing. Exactly what you did is exactly what I'm doing.
Cool, so I'm on the right track then.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing there. It will not join those roofs.
All right. So yes, thank you for explaining the case, and I think I know how we can show this exactly the same way. So I've roughly got my gable here on the back, right? And so now I want to use that cool join roof plane tool to join the roof in at the back here, right? So it cuts the shape. The problem is if you grab this edge and then you grab the join roof planes tool here, it moves the one roof plane. So you can see it's moved the one, but it's not cutting the shape below for the other. And then when you try to do, let me get that edge, join the roof plane again. If I turn my glass house on, oops, let me make this view active. So if I turn on glass house, it hasn't cut the triangle out of the existing or the original roof plane. So then what we could do is add a break here. So I think this is kind of where you may be seeing part of the problem. Maybe we have only one break in the original roof plane and you try to use that join roof planes tool again. And it's not popping it for me. I might have my error messages turned off, but this is usually the case where you would get that error message where it's saying you don't have enough edges or you can't join those roof planes. The problem actually is you need the same number of little diamond handles on the old roof plane as you have joints in your new roof plane. So I'm just using my break tool again, and I'm going to add another joint here and then another joint here. So this is where what I like to do is add some breaks to my roof plane and then kind of edit the shape of that roof plane so that I know that there are enough edges to connect the old and the new together. Once you have enough edges, then you'll be able to use that join roof plane tool and catch each of these edges to join them into, your existing roof plane. So I think that's what you're seeing is you'll want to add a break to the edge of the old roof and just kind of loosely shape it so that you know where those valleys are going to go, and then try your join roof plane tools. You can have a similar problem if you have too many breaks. So if I have an extra break here, let's see what happens if I try to join this roof plane together. it kind of worked, but it also messed up my other side. So you can have a couple issues back and forth with that if you have not enough breaks in your roof plane or if you have too many breaks in your roof plane. So I think that's kind of the direction you'll want to go when you're manually editing those existing roof planes.
So I'm having the problem with this particular plan, and I've had it before, but I'm having the problem even joining the first 2 roofs, and it could be because I have a bump out on the house, and I'm nesting the addition behind that bump out. So there's already like a 3-foot bump out, and with a roof plane, existing roof, an existing roof. So for example, like if you look at the 5'2" area of your house, like your 12'3" would be like 14'6", and then the other side would be 12'3". And so then I'm putting that bump out behind that cavity. It just does not. I just tried it again, doing exactly the same stuff you just talked about.
Yeah.
Cannot move these roof edges without making adjacent edges cross one another or making one of them 0 length before joining them by adding to one of the edges or using edit handles to move the edges closer together.
I see. Okay, so yeah, this might be a case where you might want to send an example of your plan in. You'll get that error message too for the 0 length roof edges if by nature of joining the roofs, it has to cross another edge of your roof plane. So that may be part of what you would see too. But yeah, why don't you send us a note with your plan or a screen capture attached, and I bet we can help sort that out.
I will actually, because I have a presentation tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Carrie?
I have a quick pointer that a lot of people overlook is that the Join Roof Planes tool is a very edge-based tool. So you have to be careful where your mouse is on that second click. It needs to be near the edge that you're trying to join.
Yes,
for example, you try to join the valley with the eave, the overhang, you might get that error message a lot more often.
That's a good point. Yep, so you do have to be very intentional about making sure that red handle is joining with the edge that you actually want to join.
Awesome.
But yeah, Robin, I mean, maybe after this presentation, if you shoot us a little screen capture, we can kind of check it out so that hopefully we can save you before,
It's always last thing that this happens with.
Yeah, let's look at that in an email and we'll try it another way.
Let's check in with Brandon. Brandon, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi there. Basically, I do pretty much all my roofs manually. I mean, I very rarely use any of the built stuff to do it. But basically, I'm looking for what you'd think about a best practice. And we'll just say, hey, that bathroom towards the bottom of the page, if that was a little bit lower down into the roof, kind of pushed into the roof system, but I still needed a window that was big enough, there would quite often be like a pan.
Yeah.
I know we can make another roof plane that, joins from one to the other. They kind of have that smarts where they'll join from base, or not baseline, but, fascia top to ridge and so on. You can start stacking your roofs, draw a thing. But, the problem is that it won't infill the little walls that would really be on the inside of that pan. You end up having to draw a lot of manual walls around, and I'm just kind of wondering, is there a way that you can have a little recessed pan to allow your window to be full depth, but yet not have to build every little stinking part to it?
I see. Well, I think, so the way that the roofs kind of think and the way that they behave is they really do interact with walls quite a lot. So you're saying, for example, if these windows, I know it's not the exact same.
Let's just say if that window was a lot taller in depth, yeah.
Yeah, so that you have this.
There would be a pan there.
Right. Right. So yes, what I would do in that scenario is just simply, I would edit this roof plane. So I would essentially make another room outside of the window. So it would be like just kind of a little, like you're describing a pan, it would be just another extra room. I'd probably use my my straight half wall tool. So that's just a short railing that you can put a cap on. And I would just make the space for that. And then I would just modify my roof plane. Let me find it here. And then, you know, put your brakes in.
Yeah, basically what I've done would be to, you know, as you've pulled that roof back where the little red handle is.
Yep.
Currently, I would then put like a, well, because there wouldn't be a wall around it. I mean, there's not going to be a planter box there.
Right.
It's usually just like a quarter 12, either rubber or metal roof. And so I've usually gone off where that little red handle is, drug another roof plane from there back to my wall at, again, like a 1/4 inch pitch.
Yep.
You know, made it black or whatever to make a rubber roof or whatever. But the two little sides where you have the walls drawn, they would actually be under the roof. That's what's not auto building for me, and I'm having to like put these little things in there. So maybe this is an answer of draw the things and pull a roof over it.
Yeah, and I believe, yeah, as we can see, that's another interaction Chief has when you have a roof and a wall. Unless you have chosen the default behavior is to cut the wall if it's underneath the roof. So you'll see that occurring. So here, it looks like the program is leaving the cap for that railing type. So instead of using that railing wall type, I would just use regular, you can make a new wall type that's maybe very thin and has a rubber material on it or something like that, or even a siding or whatever. And then that will cut the wall underneath the roof as long as that roof edge is.
Yeah, I think the path that you're on is, yeah, it's just really drawing. The answer is there's no way to not draw the walls around the thing to get the little, we're going to call them gable walls, the little infill end walls to create. You really have to draw the walls.
I mean, you'll have to cut the roof at the bare minimum.
Yeah, correct.
You can use walls. You could use a polyline solid or a molding, or you could use any 3D object. So you can put those on your own layers and not show them in your plan view.
Yeah,
so
no, get it. Yeah, because what's missing here is obviously the pan part of the roof, which would be the small little low slope thing that would go from that long edge to back to the house.
Right.
And I get all that, you know, that's so. Okay, I just wanted to see if there was like, if I was missing something about making fast way to get those little walls to generate, but the answer is you still draw them.
Yeah, you still would need to draw something.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Do. Yep, no problem.
Adrian, we have Maria here. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question, Maria.
Hey, Maria.
Hi, how are you doing?
Great, how are you?
Good, thank you. So I actually have a question related to the roofs, but a little bit of the topic you are discussing today. It's about creating a schedule of materials, roofing materials. So I was playing with it, and for some reason, my chief architect material schedule for the roof had some really gross miscalculations. So I must be doing something wrong, because obviously the computer would calculate this better than I. Would you give a little bit of a intro on that into this?
Sure. Yeah, so the comment is, or the question is, a concern about how accurate your material schedule or your material list is for the roofs when you create one. Let me try one really quickly. Really, the way that the program works is, let me toss one in real quick. I haven't used a roof schedule for a while. We could make you could probably make a materials list is a good way to show this.
That's how I was doing it.
Yeah.
So material list.
Okay. So if I just look at the general materials list, then I'll have a section here somewhere for roofing. So here's my roofing. And the program is just populating this from the information we've put into our roof defaults. So when you're building your house or redoing your design or whatever, you'll want to look in your roof specification dialog under this structure panel, and actually really throughout this dialog. So any of the materials or the components that are attached here will be reflected in most of the roof planes unless you manually edit those roof planes. So that includes all of these framing pieces. So when you build your framing members, you would get that type of a framing, but the actual roofing itself for like the shingles and the surface and that sort of thing, those are all driven from these layers in your roof surface definition. So here we would put, you know, the finished material and whatever under sheathing material you would have. So you'd want to check to make sure that that is similar to what you would want to use. And the same for the structure panel and the ceiling panel below. So the other thing to just kind of be aware of is similar to kind of what we were looking at with Robin's question, is you can have roofs that overlap. So if you have multiple roof planes that are not being cut into the shape, like what we're seeing where we have this valley here, if you could have a roof plane that, you know, goes the full length and isn't cut by the opposing roof plane, the materials list is going to reflect this entire filled area of this polyline for this particular roof. So you may get extra materials in this area. And the program doesn't really care necessarily that you have a finished roof overlapping a finished roof. It's still going to show the finished material for this polyline for both of those. So I think that's kind of just your driving focus of where it's getting the material information for roofing. Does that kind of help at all or make any sense?
Can you please go back to your material list that you just opened, because I didn't see the standing seam metal roofing material in there.
Here's the, this one happens to be called gray standing seam here, line R2.
And what's the total? Like, where is it? Where's the number?
Oh, I don't have it filled full screen. So here you can see it's 922 square feet.
I really doubt that this is the right number. If you just
I'm sorry, this is lineal feet for this particular type of material. So that's another thing to understand is standing seam, we have it set up to calculate by how you would order it. So you might order it in a lineal foot instead of a square footage. So if you wanted this to report as square footage, you can edit the actual material property itself. And you can do this for any material anywhere in your project. But we have this panel, I think this was new in X12 for materials list. And this allows you to tell the program how to calculate it. So our standing seam metal is a linear calculation. If you want it to be an area or square footage, then you can change that calculation so you would get square feet instead. So it could be that it's just reporting the wrong type of a calculation, and you may need to adjust your material properties so it reflects the right calculation type. So I'm editing this one, and we'll regenerate it to see if that updates to a bigger number. Here's our roofing, gray standing seam, and now we have 2,300 square feet. Does that sound like it's a little better?
Yeah, now it looks like
Yeah,
the real number.
yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep, so just adjust your materials, and then that's how you reflect how it's calculated to your materials list. All right, Carrie, do we have somebody else?
We do. We have Henry here with a question. Go ahead, Henry.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thank you. Can you please show me how to flare a roof that gets down towards the plate?
Sure. So do you want it to just be a slight curved flare?
Like, I would think the main part of the roof to be straight, and when it gets down towards the top plate, there's a little bit of a swoop out.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. Sure. So yes, to create a flared roof, let's not save this. So let's say, for example, on this particular porch front, let me get another 3D view open here. Whoops. We just want to add a little swoop at the end of this roof, for example. So the first thing I would probably do in my plan view is I'm just going to take this primary roof plane that I want to add the flare to, and I'm going to copy and paste it right on top of itself. So I'll have two matching roof planes. And then I'll take the copy and I'm going to make it the depth of whatever the flare will be. So maybe it's just going to be almost the overhang length. I think my overhangs in this project are 18 inches. So I'm just kind of cleaning up. I have some jogs in my roof that I'm going to clean up, and then I'll change the depth there. I'm hitting just to kind of point it out. If you have, I love this tool because if you have an extra break in your roof edge, so it starts getting a little haywire, to kind of edit it. Down on the edit toolbar here is a button called Simplify Polyline, and that will take those extra handles off as long as they're collinear. And then it just makes it a lot easier to manipulate the plane. But I'm making a roof plane that's 18 inches. And then I have to take the original roof plane and I'm going to snap it up to the edge. So this, you can't flare just the tip of one roof plane. You need to make a brand new roof plane that's going to contain that curve. And then we'll take this, the new roof plane or the copied roof plane that I've resized, and I'll open the specification for it. And I have this option for curved roof. And I'm going to choose to lock the pitch of my roof. And I like to think about it. I think Carrie Stanton's better at this than I am, but she just demoed it last week. So you can watch that video also. But I like to think of the angle from the fascia that I want that curve to go up. And so I'm going to set the angle at the eave to, let's do like 15. And let's see what happens. And it was very, very slight, but that gives us a little bit of a flare here on the end of our roof. We could try to make that a little more extreme.
I was using 25.
Oh, it went up the wrong way. It's still very slight. I'm going to set it to a low number so we can show the flare a little more. Let's do like 5.
Okay.
So there you'll get the flare.
Well, okay. It's not very gracious there, is it?
No, and it's just because I'm rusty at doing flared eaves. That's the technique. We do have a better video for that, and I think somebody can chat the link out for that so you can get the steps to do it accurately, much more accurately than what I'm doing.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Adrian, our next question comes from Karen. Karen, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. I have got a situation where we have an outdoor space without a second floor,
Okay.
and it's a gambrel roof. It's like a 16 by 32 space, gambrel roof, very steep on the sides, and the client wants a dormer on the long side that is basically in line with the gambrel roof.
Okay. Okay. So I have it's really, the technique to do this is almost the same as what I showed in the presentation today. You're just kind of reversing some of the pitches that I put into the wall definition. I mocked up a simple gambrel roof that has a few shed roofs on it, and I have that plan available for download on our Chief Talk post. So that's something that you can download to get the file. But we have a gambrel here, and you're saying that they would want the shed roof to be more of an extension of this upper pitch, is that right?
It's actually the exact same gambrel, but going over the top of the dormer. So it's not a shed roof.
Gambrel over the dormer as well?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so in order to do a gambrel roof, let's look at our floor plan really quickly. If you look at the wall specification where the gambrel is bearing over the wall, this is the wall. These are the walls that you'll want to set up those double pitches. So you'll open your wall plane, wall type, specification, and under the roof panel, you have your pitch options here. Okay, so very much like the goal wing, what you do is choose the first pitch, which is your very steep pitch. So if you know how much that needs to be, you can enter that value in, and then you'll check the box for an upper pitch, and then the value for that as well. And then here we have the transition between the two roof planes. So this this roof plane I'm on my screen here, that is 48 inches off of the wall. So you can, if you know where that shed needs to start or where that intersection happens, you would just enter that in exactly the same way. And then I don't think I've ever tried to do a gambrel on a gambrel. I guess we could try that really quickly to see what happens. But let's make this wall on our upstairs attic. So these are going to be my two dormer type spaces. If we make this a full gable wall.
And that's my issue.
Okay.
I don't have an upstairs space because it's an outdoor space with an open ceiling.
Okay. Well, okay. So what I would do is go ahead and make an upstairs space anyway, and then you can make these walls railings that have posts and beams overhead if that's necessary. And then you can just tell the program, after you get the roofs to generate, you can tell the program to not generate a ceiling at all, and that will take that ceiling plane out for you. Or you can just, if you go through the whole process and get the program to make the roofs for you, you can delete, after you turn off the automatic roofs, you can delete walls and rooms underneath those if you want to. So sometimes it's useful to just use your room and wall specifications as a mechanism to get you to the roof that you want, and then turn your automatic tools off, and then you can delete the stuff below. You can also you could also just copy and paste roof planes around and do some manual editing with joining roofs like we were kind of doing in some of the previous demos. So those are all techniques that you could use to get there.
Okay. I'll try.
It sounds more intimidating than it is, I think. If you download this project file, you can open it up and look at turning off the automatic roofs, and then you can start changing and deleting the walls that are underneath the roofs. And I think it might start making sense.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Do we have anyone else, Carrie?
We do. We have Larry Singleton. Hey, Larry, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
If I want my roofs to pitch, have the bird's mouth cut on top of ceiling joists or a floor system with like a 2x4 ledger nailed down, how can I change that in the default settings?
The controls for the bird's mouth cut are they are under the option, no, where are they? They're here under the roof panel. So you can control whether or not it's going to have the bird's mouth cut automatically, and then you can set the values here. Have you used this area of the specification dialog?
Yeah, but I'm talking about where the height of the rafter. Do I have to manually raise the roof. If, I don't want the bird's mouth cut sitting on top of the wall. I want it to sit on top of a ledger, which is nailed down on top of the ceiling joist.
And you want it to still cut the bird's mouths out of the rafters.
Sure.
You can raise the roof here, but unless maybe
Okay.
Scott or Al can.
So if I'm doing a 2x ceiling joist with a 1.5 inch ledger, I just need to put a value of whatever it is, 7 1/4, 8 3/4 inches.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll automatically, when the roofs are created, it'll automatically raise all of them.
Right. Yep. As long as you're using the automatic tool, it will automatically raise every roof in the design that value. Yep. I don't think it will cut the actual notch out of your rafters, but I mean, everything will land in that same plane so that it's located.
Yeah. If in the same model, I have a portion of the area with ceiling joists and another portion with like eye joists.
Yeah.
11 7/8, and I would have to manually adjust those roof.
I don't believe so. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but as long as you have that ceiling platform set up correctly in the room definition, the roofs are going to look at what the room is doing, and it's going to raise the assembly based on what it's reading from the different rooms.
Oh,
in your
it
design.
is going to put the rafters up on top of the ceiling or the floor.
I mean, this raise value should it's looking at the room specification. So if the ceiling or the ceiling structure is higher in one room than the other, then yes, I believe it will account for that in this setting.
All right. Well, I'm sorry for being so vague, but that's okay. I think I have an understanding, so I'm good to go. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Larry.
Adrian, we have Lindy here. Hey, Lindy, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, I'm working with some city limitations on roof height on a 2-story home, and I want to maintain the pitch in the front of the house. It's a 612 pitch in the front, but I need to lower the pitch in the back of the house so that the roof doesn't go above the 36-foot limit. It's a fairly complex roof. It's got a lot of different elements to it, but the main portion of the home is where it's wide enough to where the overall roof height is going to exceed 36 feet. So I need to cut it back to that. So how do I leave the pitch in front the same and change the pitch on all of the back elements of the roof?
Okay. Well, because you're trying to deal with a high point on your ridges, I don't know that we can automatically generate the roof based on what that threshold is for your high point. So I think what I would probably suggest is you get the automatic roofs to build the front as closely as you can with with your 6 and 12 pitches and make that happen. And then what I would probably do is, show kind of the technique I might use, is take a section view or an elevation view from the side. And I would just start using some basic measuring tools, really, where I would find, whatever that high point is. What did you say the distance had to be?
It's 36 feet on this for a 2-story home.
My house might not be tall enough, but maybe we'll just choose a random.
Whatever, you can just reduce it into whatever.
Yep. So I make my.
It's a much more complex roof than just what you have here. So
yeah, sure. Yeah, I think to get it to happen automatically, you're probably not going to have tools that make this decision for you automatically. But essentially what I would do is find the distance off the front of my house. So whatever this value is to my 36, whatever this elevation point is. So I'll know that it's at 10 foot. And then I have to come into start manually editing my roofs and set this ridge point just manually at the 10'9" or whatever it is. And now I have, and maybe I would add construction lines too, just so I had some different things to snap to, and then that would give me my front point for my my high point of my ridge for my 6 and 12 pitch roof. And then after that, you're kind of just chasing it from behind the house where you're doing, you can drag, like maybe for example, you would grab this roof plane in the back. Whoops. And I can't use my joined roof planes because it's gonna make those meet. Instead, what I'll do is open up this roof plane. I know that the ridge top is that 36 feet or whatever my value is. So that's what I'm always gonna be keeping locked here. But I'm gonna copy this value, and then on the back side of my roof, I'm gonna open it up. You may care most about the top of the plate. So whatever the room height is inside, you may care about the fascia top. So you would want to choose what part you want to keep constant. We know the pitch is probably going to change, so we don't lock this value. And then you just paste that high point in.
Stay the same.
So now our ridge top for this roof plane that I'm editing matches the one on the front, and the program has calculated that that's going to give you a 2 11/16 and 12 pitch or whatever. So it will be some manually editing, but because you have these locking controls and you can kind of take references from other parts of your design, then you can choose what part to lock and then make the joints manually.
Yeah, I knew it would involve some manual edits. I just wasn't sure how to do it. Can you show what that looks like? Yeah, it's an 8,000 square foot house with a very complex roof.
Oh, wow.
But I've got a limitation on the height of it. Can you show what that would look like? The view, the side view?
It's kind of wonky, but yeah. So here it's kind of like a salt box feeling for this particular section. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I need to try to get done. Now, over on the far, what I'm looking at, far left-hand side of that screen, the back of the house, why are there two different ridge points?
Because when I built my roof, it's a hip, so I have this other roof plane floating off to the side here. So if this was just a gable, then it would look a lot cleaner, but I'm kind of playing quick and dirty here. There you go.
Got it. Okay.
Adrian?
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Alan, did you have something?
Can I get in here for a second? If you might be able to use that second pitch thing here, because you can set a height, right?
Oh, good point.
If you know your maximum height, you can set that second pitch and have the first pitch be steep, the second pitch be shallow, and you can set the height of the break.
Yeah, that's a clever point. Yep.
So where would I go to set the height of the break then?
So that's in the wall specification here. So it's similar to our gambrel and our gold wing scenario. And what Al's suggesting is that when you use the automatic tools, just set a second pitch. It probably could be a random second pitch, I would assume. And then you would set your start height at that 36 feet for the second pitch. I think I have to go slower here or lower because my house is too small. But let's do that at a 15-foot mark. And then I'll turn on rebuild roofs. And it's telling me it's going to delete what I did, and that's okay. And then let's get rid of this. Did it work? My house might still be too small. Oh, I didn't do a second number here.
So that's where you put in upper pitch is where you put in the second pitch?
Yeah, I think what Al's alluding to is this second roof plane maybe isn't as necessary to begin with, but what you could do, is this the track you're going on, Al?
Yeah, if you look at section, the first roof section is going to be the one you want. The one up above is just extraneous. You don't need it.
This is just extra.
Yeah. So if you can delete that one, then the first roof plane determines your height because you've already set it.
Yep.
So you have your maximum height set.
If I could click properly.
Yeah,
so then I would delete this roof. And then, now we have this back roof that's already on the plan that I would just lock the baseline and tell it to match this height again. So this is kind of that manual portion. So we want to lock the top of plate, and then the ridge top, I think I said I used 15 feet. Hopefully this just kind of works. And then I would be able to, oh, I did that backwards, sorry. So I got ahead of myself. Now that you have them lined up, go ahead and lock your plate and then set the ridge top height at 15. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a good way to get closer automatically. Thanks, Al.
Okay, thank you very much.
Adrian, our next question is from Vicky Worcester. Hey, Vicky, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, I have a couple of things that happen on roofs and then framing that are kind of an annoyance. I guess they're minor, but I would like to know if there's any way to work around this. Now, when you have, say, an upper floor and you've got a lower floor roof that's going to come up against it either as a shed or parallel, you want to use the special snapping on your roof planes so that the exterior shows properly, and you see your siding, etc., in your elevation views and your camera views. But when you go to frame that roof, literally when you frame it, that either the ledger or the abutting rafter is going to be right up against the sheeting, and the siding will be on top of it.
Yeah.
So when you go to frame that roof, then the rafters are, the roof framing doesn't show up in the right place, and you have to adjust it manually. Or if you adjust the roofs for no special snapping so it frames correctly, then when you look at the elevation or the camera view, you see siding, you don't see siding.
Yeah.
That's one thing. And then the second one is kind of related.
Okay.
Is when you're doing a roof cut wall at bottom, the same thing. The roof plane line goes into the inside of the wall, jogs, and then jogs back out. When you frame it, you get all these weird little pieces of rafter that don't belong.
Right.
Is there anything I can do to make that not such a pain in the rear when I'm framing it?
Sure. Yeah, I think you're kind of hitting one of those limitations right now where you can't tell the program what layer that you want to snap that framing to, and it will be a little bit of manual editing as far as I understand, unless somebody knows a different method to that. Yeah.
I also have one other thing that happens every once in a while when I'm doing trusses.
Okay.
And I'm going to make a truss. The roof plane is there, but I try to make a truss that's usually at the edge of something. Even if it's if it's outside the wall, it won't make a truss. That's fine. But sometimes I have it when I'm making a truss over what's supposed to be a wall, what should be there, and I get we can't construct a press. There's no roof plane, something like that, and it'll show on the floor plan, but when you go to a framing view, it's not there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So yeah, the way that trusses will work is they're going to look for a good envelope to fill into. So if it happens that, and I always kind of fall victim to this too, if it happens that the envelope is too small to make that framing member, then the truss it kind of fails to build. And it could be a scenario like that you're hitting.
Okay.
These might be the type of examples here. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. And where we would want to see maybe your project plan, like a simplified version of your project, and then we can kind of dissect whether it should actually be able to build a truss or if it's just outside the bounds of
Well, next time it happens, I'll maybe send it in to support.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd love to see it because, yeah, any example that anyone ever has of kind of those odd fringe cases, we really like to dissect those so that we can make the program work better automatically.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Vicki.
We have a couple more questions, Adrian. The next is from Amanda. Hi, Amanda. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, I'm having some trouble with the molding when I do like your overhangs, and if I do like the automatically generated roof, the molding will be correct. But if I go to manually manually draw the roof planes, my molding will not be correct. And so how do I make those match?
So are you talking about maybe freeze molding around your roof?
Yes, I'm sorry, a freeze molding, yes.
Okay, so the freeze molding controls are within the build roof dialog for your automatics, which it sounds like those happen to be working properly for the most part. So let's just put one in.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just randomly kind of grabbing something. And, oh, I keep turning my build roof off. So let's auto rebuild those roofs. So here's our funny little roof plan.
Okay.
And actually, let's do a different camera view here. And so you're finding that when you manually draw a roof plane, maybe we'll draw something across the gable here, that those moldings don't match.
Yeah, or they won't appear, like the freeze board won't show up on a manually. Yeah, well, they won't show up on a manually generated roof.
Let's look. Okay, so this is going to turn off my auto rebuild, which I think is probably okay. And let's get out of this guy. So I put just kind of a little eyebrow on my design. This one is showing the freeze. It's hard to see it under there.
Right.
So the first thing I would do is, it depends on the sequence of events. So if you've turned on the freeze in your build roof dialog box after these were created, it's not going to automatically add the freeze to your existing roof planes.
Right.
So I would just simply do a manual check that it's literally in there. It just may not be attached.
Okay.
Then you'll have to manually add them. You can multi-select your roofs in your plan view and do this type of a function to it as a group. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Adrian, our last question is from Charles. Hey, Charles, go ahead.
Hi, Adrian. Can you hear me okay?
I can. How are you?
Okay. I'm doing good. Thank you. Going back to your original half-story addition on the second floor over the bathroom, that gable roof.
Yeah.
If you wanted to, say you extend that gable out 2-foot overhang, and then you wanted to put a shed roof right smack in the middle of that, how would you connect the edges?
So you want to make maybe kind of an awning that would go over this window?
Oh, something like that, yes, to shade the window.
Okay.
I can never seem to get those edges connected properly.
I think we fielded a similar question in one of our previous demos, and we also had a tough time with that. We don't really have a join roof plane tool right now that creates that kind of 45 or that mitered joint when you have those opposing style of roofs. You can do something like I could do, let's see if this would work, roof return. Let's try a full return here. Oh, and it's only doing a portion of it. But the roof return will make this joint very cleanly. When you try to manually edit it and create that shape, you'll have maybe some issues with the fascia boards minoring up properly.
Right.
So
oh no, sorry. That roof return is going under the assumption that they're both at the same pitch, and I guess you can't adjust the pitch on that roof return, can you?
No, you can't on those particular types of roof returns. What you were kind of stuck with doing the manual roof shed that you were mentioning, and then manually editing the edge or the corner joint there. And
Just kind of trial and error.
yeah. Yeah, there's
Okay.
not an automatic join for that inside corner situation like that. Mhm.
Okay, great. Well, that was my question. Thanks a lot. I appreciate
All
it.
right. Yep.
Adrian, we have Robin Stewart here. Go ahead, Robin.
Hey, super quick. On my perspectives and my elevations, I want to be able to add valleys on your standing seam roof. So when you're looking at your standing seam, I want to be able to add the metal valleys in. How can I do that?
That's a good question. I think probably what I would do is, what would I do? Let's see. I don't think we'll draw the valley. What you could do is make a symbol object. So I would probably make a polyline solid. And I'm just going to draw one really quick. Oops. Whoa.
I've done I've done themes in 3D. So I've drawn themes in 3D. So you're saying to like in an interior space. So I do polyline solids, draw like those interior beams and things like that. You're saying like do that on the roof, but they would only be like beams. You'd like have to have like thickness and width to them, and a valley is like an eighth of an inch, like literally under the roof.
Right. Yeah. So you're saying the flashing is actually underneath the roof surface. Yeah.
You have to show the roof.
Does anyone else on the team have an easy solution to show the valley under a standing seam roofing? Sorry, to kind of show that in the 3D views, just by pulling the surface of the top roofing layer back so that it will be exposed underneath. Getting crickets, Robin.
Crickets, come on! I can't be the only person asking for valleys. Come on.
Hey, Robin, this is Scott. Do you only want to see those valleys in an elevation view?
I would like to see them in a perspective and an elevation, Scott.
Okay.
Scott,
Yeah.
how are you?
He's here.
It'd probably be a lot of work, but one way you could probably do it is just make a copy of your roof plane and make it real small and narrow.
Yeah.
Like 6 inches wide or whatever the valley is on both sides. And then apply a different material in that area for your valley.
So like what I was actually thinking that I could do, and I don't know, Scott, if like you could like, or Adrian, you could walk me through this, is like, I was thinking about how, like I do material regions on elevations all the time. How can I do a material region on a perspective? Because it, my X, Y, and Z coordinates are, I'm using all three on a perspective versus like just using 2 coordinates on an elevation.
Yeah, and the material region won't cut the surface of your roof anyway, so I don't think it would get you what you're looking for in this particular case. I almost always would use an elevation or a plan view if I edit most of my polylines, just because you do get that like.
Whatever you just did worked on one plane.
Yeah, so I just used Scott's suggestion kind of as we were thinking, and what I did, similar to how I showed that flared eave on the roof earlier, I took this roof plane and I copied and pasted it in place. And then I moved the edge of my copy, so I have a teeny tiny roof plane right here, and that's going to be my flashing material. You could even make it a thinner layer, so it might have some 3D. And then took my original.
Yeah, so do that on the other plane.
Yeah, so then what I would probably just do is ditch this one. Oh, you're talking about the back one?
No, I'm talking about that. So you have one
copy and paste these, so I'd reflect it.
The adjacent, so your flex room there has to have it on that side as well.
Yeah, so it's a little more editing, but again, it's kind of the same story. If you just copy and paste this in place. And I have all of these crazy edges that we'll be fighting with, but the general theory is, I'll probably get that warning that we couldn't get for you.
Yeah, and as Adrian's doing that, probably what I would do is I would just have one big roof plane. And then once you get your smaller roof plane, I would just leave it and put it over the top of the other one so it doesn't affect your framing or anything.
Yeah.
And then you could set it up a couple inches so that it shows and doesn't fight with the other materials below it. And then you can mark those and not frame them. And I think visually, you'd probably be able to get what you're after. It does require a few more moving steps, as you can see Adrian's going through that. But I think visually, you'd get what you're after.
I think what Adrian is doing is like that took her seconds. I think it's working.
Yeah. So here you can see I didn't finish editing the underlaying roof. So it's obviously not the right material over here, but yeah, yes, that's right too. If you're doing a framing plan, this might do funny things.
Oh, goodness. Thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you so much. It's just something that I just have always wanted to show on plans, especially when we're dealing with metal roofs and directional and spacing and all of those different things. Just being able to show like those flashing areas is always very helpful. So thank you guys.
Yep. Thank you.
That's all the questions we have today. Adrian, did you have any announcements you wanted to make?
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for joining us. We love to get to interact with you guys, and it's great feedback, just as kind of Robin has shared about what you guys want to see. So we always take notes. You can send suggestions if you have more ideas to us at suggestions@chiefarchitect.com. We are next and last Thursday webinar for just a little bit is going to be on automatic dormers. So we have an automatic dormer tool, and you should join us to see how that works next week. And we also have some training coming up so that you can learn more about how the program works. So come visit our events page and you can get more access to training resources. And we will also be emailing out a link to this video and the Q&A session, and we'll have a survey in that email too. We'd really appreciate your feedback on how this went for you. So thanks in advance for doing that. And I think that's it. Have a great afternoon and end of your week.